breaking down your script for a micro budget shoot. Micro budget, low budget. If you have limited amounts of money, you want to spend it effectively. So I came up with 10 topics. Got my little cheat sheet right here, and I want to talk to you about that. So the first one is read and analyze the script. So I know it sounds obvious to read the script, but you want to read the script in the mindset of what I talk to when I'm working with a writer. As a matter of fact, I'm collaborating with a couple of writers right now. And sometimes when I talk to them about the production, I tell them in advance, okay, I'm taking off our writer hat right now and I'm putting on my producer hat. So we're going to read the script and we're going to think about how we would put this scene together. Can we afford to actually do this scene? So for instance, here's an example. I'm working with a writer right now, and she wrote a scene that took place at the beach at night. So we had to realize, look, that's something that we can't do right now because the very limited amount of money we're working on. We're creating a short. And so we decided to move that to a different location where we had access to light, to a poolside at a hotel. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about when you need to look at your look at your script scene by scene and analyze, not from just the creative point of view, but from a producer doing something on a very micro budget. Can I do this? Do I have the resources? Is this really feasible for this project we're working on? So that's just one example. Look at it in detail. Okay, what are the elements that make up this scene? Yes, it's a well-written scene. You're happy with it. You like how it's turning out. But now put your producer cap on. Can we really make this scene and shoot it so that it doesn't look low budget? That's one thing I want to say too. When you're doing this analysis, sometimes you want to change stuff slightly and shift stuff in your scenes, not to, hurt the script, but to make it still look professional and at the highest quality you can, but still get the point across. So the next one is you want to identify the key elements when you break down your locations. So you're going to be looking at your locations, you're going to be looking at the characters, you're going to be looking at the special effects and the stunts. So you'll make a list. Actually, what I do is I make a list, a breakdown sheet. It's called a breakdown sheet. You can find that on the internet. Do a Google search for a breakdown sheet. And that's going to help you as you go through each scene to know what you should be looking for in those scenes. And you break out those individual elements. And as you're breaking those out, you're writing them down. You're writing notes. Okay, we're going to need dinner. We're going to need wine glasses. We're going to need candles. And so you write all those elements down and you start thinking again as the producer, how can I get these elements? Where will I get them? Who can I borrow this from? Who can loan me this? So I'm talking about, again, our micro budget projects. You want to borrow as many things as you can that you can return to people, things that you need for your production that will give you those production values without sacrificing it and using up the limited amount of money you have to do the project. So again, let's go to the next one. We talked a little bit, some other videos about location scouting. I mentioned about finding free locations, finding locations that you could get maybe from cast or crew. So that's just one I won't go into that much detail because I've done a video on finding low budget locations. You can look that up on my channel. Cast and crew. Again, determine the minimum number of cast and crew as you're doing your breakdown that you'll need for each scene. Some scenes may require more crew. You might need more production assistants if you're shooting someplace difficult, like if you're shooting outside and you need people to help you bring the equipment in. Some scenes may be simple. It might be a two-person scene. So maybe you can get by with a smaller crew on that day. So when you're doing micro-budget projects, you want to think of money-saving ways without sacrificing the quality of your production. You want to think of ways that you can save money and still get the job done. So that's part of the analyzing your script, cast and crew. Let's see, what do we have here? Schedule and shooting plan. Now, when you're new, again, and all this information is starting out with new filmmakers who maybe haven't made that many films. So sometimes it's difficult to judge as far as your schedule goes and your shooting plan. It's difficult to judge how long it's going to take you to shoot a particular scene. I'm looking at this light up here. It smells like I'm smoking a little bit. It needs some, maybe it's a little dusty, but it's okay. Schedule and shooting plan. You're going to create a schedule that minimizes location changes and reduces travel time. So again, here's this another money saving tip. If you're shooting at a location, say for instance a hotel, and say for instance in your script you have a hotel scene, you have a lobby scene, which could be at an office building, and maybe you have something that's poolside. Maybe in your script those are 3 different locations, but you want to think about trying to schedule those shooting dates together since you're at one location already. And even though there are 3 different locations, if the main one location can pass for those 3 locations, then that's something you want to consider. Again, money saving techniques that will help you realize and save money as you're doing your micro budget production. So if you can shoot, maybe they have a bar and you have a scene that comes later on in the movie where the 2 characters are at a bar. Obviously you shoot an establishing shot of a bar, and then boom, your characters are in the bar and they're doing their small little scene. So if you can find physical locations that can take the place of multiple locations in your script, then you're going to really save yourself some money and time, because you can shoot those on that same day at that one location without doing a company move. Now, again, as you're planning your schedule, always realize that a company move, when I say a company move, I mean when you have to pack up all your equipment, actors have to pack up all this stuff, and you have to physically move someplace else. Even if it's just across town, it's going to take more time than you think. You got to pack up, you got to unpack. Everyone has to find out where they're going to be, where they're going to stage their equipment, hair, makeup, special effects, depending upon how big your production is. So company moves have to be really considered when you are doing your schedule. How many of those are you going to have during one day? I mean, if you're doing a really small production where it's you and the sound guy and it's, and a couple of actors, then you can make multiple company moves. I've done that many times in the past. But once your productions start getting a little bit bigger, even if they're micro or low budget, depending upon what you consider micro or low budget, company moves can eat up a lot of your time. So keep that in mind as you're planning your production. Don't try to put a bunch of company moves in on one day to think you can squeeze everything in, because ultimately what that's going to do is that's going to hurt your project, because you're going to be rushing. And when you're rushing, you're putting that pressure on the crew, you're putting that pressure on the actors, and on yourself if you're the director, producer of the project. You don't want to put unnecessary rush on yourself just because you got to get everything done. Oh, we got to get to this next location. Oh, that's good enough. Don't do it. Don't do it. Let's see, equipment and gear. When you're doing your breakdown, you want to obviously make a detailed list. What I call, I think I've mentioned it in some other videos, I might do a video on that one day too, what I call the list of lists. So equipment and gear is the equipment, obviously, and all the other elements that go along with it that you're going to need for that particular day or that particular scene. So when you're doing a breakdown, and like I said, when you do the breakdown sheet, I always tell people to do a breakdown sheet for each scene, because some scenes you need more, some scenes you need less. Even if you end up, once the breakdown sheets are done, then you can organize those together. Day 1, we're going to shoot scene 10, 11, and 12. And again, that helps you be more organized. So again, the more organized you are up front, the better your production is going to turn out. And I always tell people who are new to filmmaking, and I know I'm talking to a lot of you guys out here, you guys and girls who are new to film production and handling all this stuff, the more you can plan on your own time, just you sitting in front of your computer or sitting with a hard copy of your script, the better it's going to be. It's not costing you money. It's your time. I know your time is worth something, but your project, you want it to turn out well. So pre-production. That's where you're going to spend the most time on your project. It can just be you, your computer, and maybe if you have an assistant or someone that's helping you, you can run ideas by. But most of the time when I break down a project, it's just me and the script and breakdown sheets. So you want to learn about those. You want to get into the habit of using those. What's the next? We're talking about special effects and stunts. When you're doing your breakdown sheet, you're going to obviously write those in that are needed. And if you're doing practical effects, or you're planning to do some digital effects, or you're doing some physical stunts, you want to have that on your breakdown sheets. And that's going to make you realize, okay, do I need to get with the stunt person or the special effects person to see if they can really do this, if they can really bring my vision to life. So you want to write that down. You want to meet whatever stunt person, or you meet with the special effects person, talk to them, try to find out how they see it. You let them know how you want it done, and you have that discussion, not on the set, not on the day of the shoot. Okay, how are we going to do this? No. You do that in pre-production. Pre-production is where you do all of that kind of stuff. And obviously, when you get on set, things will change. You need to prepare, but be flexible on the set if something can't happen or something is not available. But you want to have a plan. You always want to have a plan before you get to the set. Budgeting and cost control. So as you're doing those breakdown sheets, you can have a little box. A lot of the breakdown sheets have a little box at the bottom where you can write down what something's going to cost, what you think it's going to cost. And then after it's written down, you can go and find out what the real cost is going to be and find out if you can borrow stuff from people and return it. You can get things that thrift shops, wardrobes, you can get props. You can find a lot of stuff cheap. Over the years, I spent a lot of times going to thrift shops to find wardrobes, going to thrift shops to find props, taking pictures of the props and, having people help me. If the project was big enough, I have some production assistants, or even sometimes I have people who are just dealing with the props. A lot of times, a lot of the stuff I'm talking about now in the cast and crew, you might not have all these separate people to help you do these things. So all of this might fall on just you and maybe you have a co-producer or a co-director or something like that. But sometimes it might just fall on you depending upon how big your project is. So you want to be able to have a list of what you need and go out and find them. Find them for low cost that can stay within your budget. Always try to save money. That's the thing with doing these micro budget projects. If you have a certain amount of money, don't just start throwing the money around, because you will run out of money. You will. There's always going to be unknown costs as you're doing a production. So you want to have, if you can, you want to have a contingency amount of money set aside, a secret little stash of money in case something does go wrong. So keep that in mind as you're planning your project. And the last thing, what I want to say is, you can create, even as you're doing it on your breakdown sheets, or you can just have a separate day of looking at your script during your pre-production. How can I streamline or simplify scenes? Not to hurt your script, not to hurt your story, not to make it less than you want it, but you want to always keep in mind, how can I simplify stuff and how can I streamline it so that nothing ends up stopping me from doing this production about something I can't get or some location I can't shoot in. And also have an alternate idea of locations, especially for all locations, I would say. You should have an alternate idea of where we could shoot it if something goes wrong. When you're doing micro budget projects and you may not have the permits you need to shoot somewhere, you always got to keep in the back of your mind, what am I going to do if we so happen to get kicked out of someplace? That can happen. Sometimes what I want to make you aware of too is that sometimes if you've paid for a location and you've been talking with the owner, say for instance a restaurant, and you paid the owner to shoot there, and he gives you he says, okay, how much would it cost me to shoot for 4 hours? And you guys negotiate a price and you pay him, and then you get there and you're shooting, everything's set up, the scenes are going, everything's going smoothly, 2 hours in, and then the owner comes in and says, you know what, I'm having a problem, you guys can't stay here this long, I thought it was going to take shorter. And nicely you tell him, we have an agreement for 4 hours, which we had paid you for, and he says, no, I got a problem, we got a big party coming in, and blah 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 blah. So those things can happen. So you need to have a contingency plan. You need to think about those issues if you're the producer or you're the director that can come up. What are we going to do? Are we going to postpone the shoot? We got everybody here. Or are we going to move the shoot outside, with the main key dialogue, and they do the rest of the dialogue as they walk into their car. So you have to be able to think on your feet, and you have to be able to streamline and simplify scenes whenever that's necessary. In my days of very low budget independent productions that I would make as a director for hire, I knew I had a limited amount of days. Most of the shoots were 10-day shoots, and I didn't have an ability to push something off to a pickup day. That was the last worst case scenario, because those pickup days would be coming out of my pocket. So I would have to simplify or streamline a scene. So you have to keep that in your mind. I'd have to do rewrites. I always used to pride myself of my ability to do rewrites when actors would flake on me or something would happen. Like I said, these were projects I was doing were work for hire, and I had to get them done within the 10 days so I could deliver the project on time. Sometimes it sacrificed the project a bit, but you had to figure out ways to maybe move that content that you didn't get to another scene they were going to shoot the next day. But you always have to have a contingency plan. You always have to be able to think on your feet, especially when you have a limited budget to work with. So that information should help you keep that in mind. And thanks for sticking around. And I will see you on the next one.